If you're about to buy an OLED, because that is what you're supposed to do, watch this video first. The TV industry has been selling us this idea that OLED is a premium choice and everything else is a compromise. But after living with both TCL C8K and the LG C5 for real-world viewing, not just testing pattern in dark rooms, I found 3 scenarios where the cheaper C8K actually delivers a better experience. And yes, I said it. Now I've calibrated hundreds of displays professionally, so I know what I'm looking for beyond the spec sheet hype. And what surprised me the most wasn't just picture quality, it was gaming response, HDR pop in bright rooms, and long-term value. We are testing these head-to-head across movies, sports, gaming, and everyday Netflix binges to see which technology actually wins where you watch, not in a controlled lab. Let me paint you a picture of how this comparison started. 3 weeks ago, I have set up both these TVs in my living room. The LG C5 on the right, priced at £1,499 of OLED glory, the darling of each tech reviewer on YouTube. The TCL C8K on the left, £1,149 C8K ambition, the underdog, nobody takes it serious. And for the first week, I'll be honest with you, the OLED won. Every time those perfect blacks, that infinite contrast, it is intoxicating. I found myself naturally gravitating towards the C5 for movie nights, but then something interesting happened. My wife started choosing the TCL for daytime viewing. My gaming buddies preferred it for Saturday sessions. And when I really started paying attention to why, I realized we have all evaluated TVs wrong. See, the problem with most of the TV reviews, including my own, sometimes, it is that we test it in ideal conditions, dark rooms, carefully selected demo content, test pattern that shows technical capability, but not real-world experience. Here's what I did differently. I lived with both. Morning cartoons with the kids, afternoon sports with sunlight streaming through the window, evening movie session, late night gaming marathon, everything that I could. I did it within those 3-week bracket. And what I discovered is that the best TV depends entirely on one question that nobody asks. How do you actually watch television? Today, I'm going to break it down, this comparison, in a way that honest, practical, and maybe a little controversial. Because after 3 weeks with both displays, I can tell you this, the answer isn't as simple as OLED always wins. First impression, the honeymoon phase. Let's start with what hits you immediately when you fire up both TVs. The LG C5 OLED turns this thing into a dark room, and it is like stepping into a cinema. Those self-emissive pixels delivers black that aren't just dark, they are absent. When you're watching something like Dune or Blade Runner, the way the shadow falls off into nothingness, it is beautiful. There is no other words for it. The C5 has this elegant to its picture processing. Skin tone looks natural without being oversaturated. Color accuracy out of the box is exceptional. And the design, razor thin profile, premium build quality, that gallery stand aesthetic. It looks like it cost £1,499. Now on the other hand, the TCL doesn't have that same premium feeling when you open it out of the box. It is thicker. Now if you take a closer look, and I'm not sure if the camera can focus here, if I go closer, you will see how thin the bezels are. Look how thin they are. So the LG, the bezel is thicker in comparison to the TCL. So it compensates, obviously, the mini LED stuff from the back. And look at the quality. So it's more like flush compared to this one here. Now, if you look at the bottom, the LG has a bigger chin in comparison to the TCL. It's very thin. And side by side, you can see that that is a razor sharp. And the stand is functional rather than beautiful. And turn it on, something immediately jumps out at you. Literally, this thing is bright. We're talking about up to 4,500 nits peak brightness in HDR mode. Fire up something like Mad Max Fury Road or any daylight scene in Top Gun Maverick, and the highlights just pops off the screen in a way that OLED can't match. The quantum dots delivers colors that are punchy and vibrant. Some purists might say it's oversaturated, but you know what? For most content, especially HDR streaming, sports and gaming, it looks spectacular. And here's the thing that surprised me. The black level are actually pretty good. Yes, you get some blooming around bright object on a pure black background, but in the real content, the actual scene and cinematography, it is way less noticeable than you would think. Now, let me give you my honeymoon verdict. In that first week, the OLED felt like the obvious winner. It had that wow factor that makes you want to show it off to everyone who visits. But I'm not reviewing these TVs after 1 week, because the real test isn't how impressed you are on the day one. It is which TV you're still happy with after day 21. And that's where things starts to get interesting. Daytime reality brightness battle. Here's the confession. Most of my TV watching does not happen in a perfect dark theater room. I've got windows, natural lights. Sometimes I'm watching TV at 2 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon. And this is where the conversation about OLED versus QD mini LED completely shifts. Bright room performance. The LG C5 can push up to 1000 nits in HDR mode highlights in a small window. That's actually really good for an OLED. But spread the brightness across the large area like a daytime sky or a snow scene. It drops around 200 to 300 nits. The TCL C8K, it laughs at the ambient light. Full screen bright sits around 600 to 700 nits. And those HDR peaks can sustain over 4,500 nits even in a large window. Here's what that means in practice. When I'm watching Formula 1 on a Sunday afternoon, the TCL makes those cars look glossy and vibrant even with the sun coming through the blinds. The LG C5 looks washed out by comparison. Still watchable, but you lose that HDR punch. Daytime news, sports, YouTube content. The TCL C8K is noticeably more engaging. Colors stay saturated. Contrast remains strong. You don't feel like you need to close the curtains to enjoy your TV. Now the LG will tell you the C5 has improved anti-reflective coating, and it does. It is better than previous generation, but, and this is important, it's still glossy OLED panel. When you've got a window or lamp reflecting off it, you will see the reflection. The TCL has that semi-matte finish that diffuses reflection more effectively. For my living room setup where I can't control the light source, this matters more than I expected. So you might be wondering, who wins the brightness battle? If you have a dedicated home theater with controlled lighting, the OLED Perfect Blacks creates a more cinematic image. But if you're like most of the people, TV in the living room, windows nearby, watching during the daytime, the TCL C8K delivers a more consistent, impressive picture across all lighting conditions. And here's the uncomfortable truth for OLED enthusiasts like myself. Most of the people watch TV with some ambient light. This scenario, where the OLED looks best, is actually the minority use case for most households. Obviously, we have kids and you can't control the lights. You need to have bright living room and you need to watch your cartoons or any other type of content at the same time. the movie night experience. Okay, what about the OLED's home tough? Those dark room movie sessions where perfect blacks should reign supreme? Testing with cinematic content, I spent multiple evenings watching carefully selected films on both display. The Dark Knight, Interstellar, No Time to Die, Arrival, content with both deep shadow and bright highlights. What the OLED does right, it is a completely dark room. The C5's ability to show shadow detail while maintaining pure blacks is unmatched. There is a dimensionality to the image, a sense of depth that comes from true pixel level contrast. Filmmaker mode on the C5 is exceptional. Colors are accurate, motion is handled naturally, and the picture just gets out of the way of the content. The TCL C8K holds its own better than any QLED I've ever tested. In actual movie content, the local dimming is surprisingly sophisticated. TCL AI PQ processor does an impressive job minimizing haloing. And those bright highlights, they hit harder on the C8K explosion, sunlight, car headlights, anything that's supposed to be luminized has more impact. Motion handling. This is where the OLED pulls ahead again. The C5 near instantaneous pixel response time means motion in crystal clear. No trailing, no smearing, even in panning shots. The TCL is good, really good for a 2D mini LED, but you can spot some slight motion blur in the fast action if you're looking for it. For most viewers, it is not a deal breaker because I couldn't actually notice it until one of my friends spotted it. Now here's a movie night verdict. In a dark room with a pristine Blu-ray content, the OLED delivers a more correct image. It is what filmmakers see in color grading suits. But the TCL C8K delivers a more exciting image, and it is more forgiving with compressed streaming content, and those bright scenes have a wow factor that can genuinely be thrilling. Which one's better depends on whether you value reference accuracy or a true brightness impact. And honestly, both are valid preference. Now we get to gaming, and this is where my expectation got absolutely upended. Every gaming focused review will tell you OLED is the king, low input lag, near zero response time, perfect blacks for atmospheric games. The LG series has been the gold standard gaming TVs for years, and the C5 continues that legacy. We are talking about 5 milliseconds input lag in game mode, VRR support, full HDMI 2.1 ports, 144 Hz capability. It is a beast on a paper, but here's what actually happens. I run my usual gaming console on both TVs. When it comes to Forza Horizon, Spider-Man 2, the OLED absolutely excels at atmospheric, darker games. But then I fired up my favorite game and the TCL just popped out that HDR brightness. It made the paint look glossy. The Mexican sun felt hot. Racing through bright environment felt more engaging than any other QLED. The TCL clocks around 10 millisecond input lag in a game mode. That 5 milliseconds slower than C5, you won't even notice it. Now the burning elephant in the room. And here's where the uncomfortable conversation needs to happen. When you're buying a OLED TV and you're going to be gaming on a static UI elements, if you're playing for 4 hours plus every single day for years to come, there's a chance that you would have your image retention. On the other hand, this C8K has zero risk. Game as much as you want, however you want, with zero anxiety. Therefore, my gaming verdict for competitive multiple player in the dark genre, I would give it to the OLED because of the motion clarity gives it slight edge. For everyone else, racing games like myself, open world adventure, colorful platformers, HDR showcases, the C8K delivers equal or better gaming experience with zero burn-in risk. And if you're someone who uses their TV for both gaming and productivity, working from home, using it as a monitor occasionally, the TCL C8K is definitely the better choice. Now, when it comes to the smart TV experience and daily usability, let's talk about something most reviews gloss over. What is it like to actually live with these two TVs day to day? The LG C5 runs on WebOS. It is mature compared to its previous. It looks a little bit polished. It is smooth. The Magic Remote is still not magic. And for UK viewers, we don't get that upgraded remote, which is kind of disappointing. You can point and click. Navigation feels more naturally than a traditional touchpad control. And the LG still gives you those ads which are annoying. On the other hand, the TCL C8K runs on a Google TV, and honestly, it is a better smart TV platform for most people. The content aggregation is superior. It pulls from all of your other servers and actually shows you what you want to watch. Voice control through Google Assistant is more capable. Chromecast is built in natively. And here's the kicker. Because it's a Google TV, it gets updated frequently. LG WebOS gets updates too, but Google's ecosystem moves faster. Now, when it comes to the sound quality, neither of these two TVs has a particular impressive built-in speaker. They are adequate for casual viewing, but if you care about audio, you're going to need a sound bar or something much punchier. The C5 down-firing speakers are slightly more refined. The TCL are slightly louder but less nuanced. Bottom line, I would suggest you to budget for an external audio regardless of which TV you go for. The long-term reality check. After 3 weeks in, this is where the honeymoon phase ends and the real feelings emerge. Let's address the burning question head on, because it is the elephant that follows every OLED discussion. Modern OLEDs are vastly improved. LG's panel protection is sophisticated. Most users will never experience burn-in, but most isn't all. If you watch the same news channel for hours daily, static tickers, or you play the same games extensively, you use your TV as a PC monitor regularly, or you keep static element on a screen frequently, then the burn-in risk goes from low to high percentage. The TCL C8K has zero risk, period. You can abuse it however you want it. Okay, let's talk about money, because price isn't just a number. It is context for everything else we've discussed. The LG C5 65-inch goes about £1,499. The TCL C8K goes for £1,149. That's not a small gap. That's a buy a soundbar. Is the C5 a better TV than the C8K? In some ways, yes, it is. Is it really worth the £350 price difference? That's a real question. The darkroom enthusiast who prioritize perfect black and reference accuracy, the OLED might justify its premium. For most living room scenarios, mixed lighting, varied content, casual gaming, the TCL delivers exceptional experience at a cheaper price. The opportunity cost is that £350 difference could buy you a premium soundbar that improves every piece of your content that you watch. I'm not saying don't buy the OLED. I am saying consider what else that money could do for you as an overall entertainment setup. Now here's your turn. If you're still here, let us know in the comment section, which TV do you prefer? The QLED or the OLED? Till next time, I'll suggest you to watch this video where we have reviewed the TCL C7K, which is a lot cheaper, under £1,000, versus this very C5. We'll see you there.